culinary students. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to measure butter, and I'm gonna measure shortening, and then I'm gonna measure a little bit of greasy peanut butter, and I'm gonna show you something that I teach all my students, which is called pre-wipe or pre-wash, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is your recipe calls for measuring butter or margarine. And if you're gonna use sticks like I do, the thing that I always teach my students is that normally recipes call for like a cup of butter, a cup of margarine, 1.5 cups of butter, 1.5 cups of margarine. So just so you know, a rule of thumb, 1 stick of butter, 1 stick of margarine is 1/2 cup. So that means if it's 1/2 cup and you add another 1/2 cup, you just need 2 sticks, okay? But sometimes your recipe calls for like 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons. Like in the next couple of videos, I'm gonna teach you how to make a chocolate chip cookie in a cup, and the recipe is actually gonna call for like 1 tablespoon. So what you wanna do is you wanna look on the side of your butter, and there's actually measurements on here. It starts with 1 tablespoon, 2, 3, 4, goes all the way to 8 tablespoons. So what you want to do is you want to look at the measurement that you need. I'm going to go ahead and turn it towards me this time, and I have it right up there on the top, and I'm going to use my knife, and it just says you need 1 tablespoon. So I'm going to use a little segment there, put it right there, and voila, I am good to go. I've got my 1 tablespoon of butter now, and I'm ready to use it, okay? So that is a trick. A lot of people didn't know that. I've had students ask me, well, how do I measure? My recipe only calls for 1 tablespoon. I got this big old thing of butter. And what a lot of them do is they melt their butter, and then they take their measuring device right here, and then they put it in here, and then they press it down, and they've got enough. Now they've got to scoop it back out. Well, if you're using real butter, then just use the little lines on the side that will indicate a tablespoon. But if you're like some people, they actually have softened spread. You would definitely have to take your spread. I would scoop it in just like this. Okay, press it against the side, just like that. I would end up taking probably a back of a knife, excuse me. This is just an afterthought just now. And I would just level it off like that, okay? Then what I like to do is I take hot running water, just like this. Take my knife, go right around the edge, and see how that just came right out? Because it's kind of like when you go to Baskin Robbins or 31 Flavors. Yeah, okay, sorry about that. It scoops right out. Well, same thing, when you take this knife and you scoop it like this, it was still so hot that it just made it plop right on top of my measuring countertop. So a rule of thumb, probably once you've measured it and you scoop it out, you might want to be right next to your bowl that you're going to use, because you're going to have a problem like I have, and then you got to start all over, okay? But my little countertop is clean, so I just put it right back in here, so we're good to go. The next thing I want to show you, and this is how to measure shortening. I like to use a rubber scraper. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to get my rubber scraper nice and warm so I can use it. The recipe is, let's just say it's going to call for we'll use a small amount of measure. This is 1/4 cup. So I take my rubber scraper, take a scoop like this, and I start to compact it down. And I always tell my students, you want to make sure you compact this down, because if you don't, what happens is there's air pockets in there, and then you don't get enough. So what I'm doing right now is I'm scraping it back with my rubber scraper. A lot of you call this a rubber spatula. That's what my dad calls it, but technically it's actually called a rubber scraper, okay? So I've got it all compact down. I want to take hot water, just like this, and that's going to help soften it up. I'll take the back of my dry measuring cup, press that down, and go all the way around, just like that. Look, almost all of it's gone. I'm just going to put it back in here because I'm going to reuse it later. And just use your rubber scraper. And a lot of people say, well, you know, Miss Hamilton, I don't have a rubber scraper like that. It's okay. Use the back of a knife, and you just go all the way around just like this. And you can use a knife instead. I found these at Fred Meyer. They're about $9. But a lot of people are like, whoa, I'm not doing that. I'm using a regular knife. You go right ahead, because either one's gonna work for you. I just like this one because it scrapes really well. I use it for other things besides shortening, okay? So the next thing I wanna show you is this is called how to measure shortening. It's called the water displacement, okay? And what happens is a lot of people don't wanna measure like I just did. So let me look at my little instrument. I'll look and see, oh, that is a fourth the cup. I'll look and see how much water I have. I'm gonna change that a little bit, okay? So this time, this is another way of measuring shortening, okay? So instead of doing the method we just did, which was you take a rubber scraper or a knife, scoop it in there, compact it down, get rid of the air pockets, run warm water on your rubber scraper knife, and then scoop it out, right? Now you got two things to clean. Another thing that you can actually do is your recipe calls for a fourth a cup of shortening. So what you want to do is you want to go over to your sink, and I like to put this right on here, and I'm going to bend down at eye level, and I'm slowly going to measure a fourth a cup, okay? Then what I want to do is I want to take a rubber scraper, and I'm going to scoop some shortening out, just like this. And I'm going to put it right inside my measurement. This is called water displacement. And for those of you that have had biology or chemistry, science, what you want to do is, if your recipe calls for a fourth a cup of water, you want to fill up your liquid measuring glass a fourth a cup of water. And then what you do is you start spooning in some shortening, and then you take it to the top of it and you press it down. And what you want to do is you want to make sure it's going to double. And once it's gone from a fourth to a half, which is double, then you know you have enough. Now when I look at this one right here, I can tell I actually have a little too much. So I can take a little bit of this shortening out. Again, because, there you go. Perfect. So what happened is I actually went over the half. So I could tell when I was reading it, because anytime you want to measure, you want to, like I said, bend down at eye level. Now what you want to do is I took a little bit out, put it right in here, go like that. What happens is the shortening is being displaced. Okay, the water's being displaced because the shortening is now, it's kind of like an iceberg, okay? And when there's a big iceberg in the ocean, it moves the water away. Same thing with the shortening. The shortening is something that's solid. It goes down, the water has to displace around it, and then it rises. And the amount that it's gonna double is whatever the shortening is. So I can tell I have the right amount now. So this is called water displacement. Then what you want to do, you just empty your water, just like this, into your sink, because you don't need the water, you just need the shortening. And then we'll just act like that is our bowl, and you just voila. And now all you gotta do is clean these out. Now something that I haven't shown you yet, this is what I want to show you. This is called pre-wash. So say for example, I'm gonna wash some dishes now. I've got my hot soapy water going here. What a lot of people do now is they take these two things, they just throw them in the sink, okay? Well, what's gonna happen, and I decide I wanna use my little handy dandy sponge here. And so if I'm over here washing dishes, as I'm washing these dishes, okay, I am actually getting a lot of grease on my sponge. Or if maybe the water's so hot, there's no more shortening on either one of these things, but guess where the shortening is? It's in my sink now, and it's gonna get all on my dishes. So I teach my students a little trick to prevent any kind of cooking utensils, any kind of bakeware from getting lots of grease on them. Take a little paper towel. This is called what I call pre-wash. And I just take it and I just wipe off all the shortening, just like this, okay? And now I put it in my hot soapy water. I take another clean one, even though I'm gonna wash it. I'll take my little liquid measuring glass here, and I just wipe it all out, and I get rid of the majority of the fat, because this is a lot of grease, a lot of fat, and now I just throw it in there, and the majority of my grease or fat is in my garbage bowl. That way now, what's gonna happen is I've just eliminated most of the grease and most of the oils. I do the same thing when I'm measuring oil, okay? After I measure it, I still got a little bit of oil residue in there, and I just wipe it off, and I'll show you that in a little bit, okay? So say for example, you're measuring Jif. You would do the same thing. What you would do is you would take a knife, or you would take a rubber scraper, and you would scoop it out, put it right inside your measuring glass, take the back of it, scoop it out, okay? But you'll have a little bit of residue, and you would just wipe off your rubber scraper, and wipe off your little measuring cup, and then voila, throw it in the sink. Now, I didn't show you how to measure it, I just kind of walked you through, but I'm pretty sure you understand what I'm talking about. Happy cooking.